Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. This is the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We look at life through a biblical lens. Tonight we're looking at the Islam problem. You know, the one the president is always telling us doesn't exist. How many times have we heard him and others in government and other places say it's not fair to label Muslims because a few radicals are running amok? Islam is a religion of peace, and we don't want to be going after the religion just because a couple of people are doing something bad. We're discriminating against Islam. And when you do that, it means that we're giving the impression that we don't want these people in our midst, meaning immigrants. And so now you're anti-immigrant. And if you're an anti-immigrant on this issue, you're now a bigot. Or there's something else similar. You see, there's this cascading effect. Well, I wanted to help you with some statistics and with some reality. And I know none of you are really paying a whole lot of attention to the African nation of Gambia. But Gambia made the headlines last month, December 2015, when the president by coup, dictator, officially changed his country's name to the Islamic Republic of Gambia, in what he explained was a bid to better reflect the country's religious identity, because 95% of Gambia's 1.9 million citizens are Muslim. Now, our president's upset if we point out the undeniable fact that the terrorists that are running around the country, and they've attacked, I think it's 9 major countries around the world, and on all the continents just in the last year. But these terrorists are Muslim. And the question becomes, well, what difference does it matter what a person's religion is? Well, it matters. It mattered when abortion mills were being bombed by protesters. You remember all that, don't you? That's been going on now for a couple of decades. Who's doing that? Christians. Remember? They were Christians. They were all Christians, regardless of whether or not they met the biblical definition of a Christian. They were out there praying and stopping people from going on, and it didn't matter who they were Christians. And some of those people went in there and blew up. Christians don't do that. Some of them took guns and killed people. Christians don't do that. So, well, they were at that church. I don't care what church they go to. Christians don't do that. When the crazies from the Westboro Baptist Church were making a mockery of military funerals, the media never missed an opportunity to label them as Christians. Those Christians from Westbury Baptist. Today, at least in the last 5 years, you will be hard-pressed to find one act of terrorism in this country, at least, if not around the world, that isn't traceable to militant Islamics. But even that can't be said in public. Reminds me of The Wizard of Oz. You remember the movie? Don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. It's no secret that Islam is seeking, again, this is at least the 3rd or 4th time, depending on how you count, to conquer the world for Islam. And that there are peaceable Muslims, ordinary Muslims, going about their business, not bothering anybody, doesn't really matter. That's not the point. They're there. They may not act out these atrocities like everybody else does, but they ascribe to the basic tenets of Islam. And it is the basic tenets of Islam that requires these atrocities. How can you say that? Well, if you look at Christianity, people will very quickly characterize Christians based on their rule book, the Bible. And they will go to the Bible and say, you're a Christian, here's your Bible, so this is what you believe and this is what you do. Christianity is a loving, peaceful, turn the other cheek religion. Some people have been pretty pushy. They push with words. Well, some of them have pushed with bombs. They're not Christians. In the minds of unbelievers, people who are not Christians, Christianity is a vicious, insulting, hypocritical, legalistic religion. So how can it be all of that and still a loving, peaceful, turn the other cheek kind of a thing? Well, to those who reject it, Christianity is hateful and dangerous. And to those who embrace it, it's loving and comforting. Again, caveat, there are those who abuse it. But when it crosses the line into breaking laws and doing dumb things, that's not Christianity. That happens in every religious system. But just look at it. In Christianity, the abuse is when people turn away from its tenets. In Islam, the ruthlessness and the domination are when people turn to its tenets. The critics of Christianity, by and large, don't know Christianity. They know people who claim to be Christian, and that could be a problem. But the percentage of people who are actually Christian, according to the Bible definition, is probably a whole lot less than you might think. I don't know what the percentage of people in the world are who claim to be Christian. I would guess that of all the people who claim to be Christian in whatever denomination, church, religious, whatever it might be, that probably less than 1% of those people are actually Christians. Those who attend the meetings, use the jargon, stand up and tell things, not necessarily Christian. A Bible Christian wants with every fiber of their being that you should find the peace and the joy and the satisfaction and the strength that they have in Christ. That's what they want. Blame them for being pushy. But they're trying to push onto you a blessing. A Muslim wants with every fiber of his being to dominate you with his religious values and systems. You don't have to believe, but you do have to pray 5 times a day. And if at all possible, at the mosque, where the imam can see you being there. Now, you women can't do that, but the men have to do that. And we're told that there are mosques where if you're one of these guys and you don't show up over a period of time, they'll come looking for you because it's a sin not to do this. But the operative word in Islam is do. There's no required doing in Bible Christianity. There's a lot of behaviors, but there is a wanting to be and therefore do in Christianity. There are no requirements to merely do. If a Christian or a person who thinks they're a Christian is doing out of obligation, thinking that's what makes him a Christian, he's wrong. And what he's doing is not only unnecessary, it's useless. Bible characterizes that as a sin. You look good doing it, but you're being repudiated by God and His Word. We have a number of those groups in our society. They call themselves Christians, but they have to do. Seventh-day Adventists, they have to worship on Saturday. And there's other things that are built into their system. They're doers. Mormons, big doers. Catholics, we've talked about that. There's videos on the website. Go back and check it out. They have things to do. Legalistic Baptists. And there's a host of others. Doing is not required as a means of being a Christian, but doing is what marks you as a Christian. Or a Mormon. We know who and what you are by what you're doing. Don't do. as a Christian, if you don't do it, and it is something a Christian ought to do, then it's a sin. And it's spiritually destructive to you and your growth process. But if you're one of these other groups and you don't do, you may not get to heaven. That's a whole lot different. If you're Roman Catholic, try not going to confession for a few years, 10 years, and then need a priest to come and to give you last rites. That priest is not permitted to do that by church law. And if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't give you last rites, you have no hope of ever getting to heaven. Now that's law. Christians have no idea what law is. That's why they sometimes get engaged in laying out rules, regulations, laws. Laws are deadening, destructive. In the world of men, the God of the Bible is the enemy. Their hearts are oriented away from Him. Their spirits are cut off. Their soul is dead to God. They hate everything God represents. They hate love. Not the feelings, but the essence of love. Love is giving, expecting nothing in return. They hate that. They hate joy and peace and patience and long suffering. They don't want any of that. They hate the giving and the expecting of things in return that God is going to pour out upon you. They hate the idea of taking care of widows and orphans in their distress, being committed to a heterosexual marriage for life, not killing babies in a womb, accepting God's natural arrangement for boys and girls until they die. You getting a picture? Don't label terrorists Muslim. That's wrong. That's judgmental. Even though we haven't seen a non-Muslim terrorist for a long, long time. Every person who's against abortion on demand is what? A Christian. But don't label a Muslim. Don't label that terrorist Muslim publicly, because that gives everybody a bad name. But you can be labeled as a bigoted, narrow-minded, evil Christian. Ask the ladies on The View. Traditional American values are Christian values. That's why they're hated so much. It's an historical fact. It's rooted in our written documents and in the lives and exploits of our people for over 230 years. But we're still being told we're not a Christian nation. Can you say George Orwell, 1984? He had a thing called Newspeak. You say it often enough, it becomes true. So how many nations of the world are now Muslim? According to a 2010 estimate, there are between 49 and 51 Muslim majority countries in the world, according to estimates that just came out on 2010 numbers. Population drifts, it's 49 to 51 because there's people move around a lot in some of these countries. To be a majority Muslim country means the country is at least 50.01% Muslim officially. There are many more nations with less than a majority Muslim population, which are Muslim nations. It is believed there are 196 nations of the world. This means Islam dominates more than 25% of them. And many of these nations are very small, meaning they're easy pickings. Many of these countries may already be Muslim or heading in that direction. A Muslim nation does not tolerate a competing religion. A Muslim nation has citizens who are Muslim or they're persecuted. Under Islam, if they're the governing policy, Gambia, official, you convert or you die. 2016 Open Doors World Watch List gives us the top 50 nations of the world that are antagonizing, dangerous for Christians. North Korea heads the list again. And you would have to count down at least to number 21 before you find a non-Muslim country, and that country is Vietnam. And then after that, there are another 10 Muslim countries until you get to number 33, which is China. And after that, 8 more Muslim countries, and then Mexico, and then 5 more Muslim countries, then Colombia, and then 4 more Muslim countries. And if you're keeping track, 5 out of the top 50 countries persecuting Christians are not Muslim. So, Mr. President, how can you say Islam is not the problem? The most rapidly growing area of persecution in the world is the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia. Islamic extremist self-styled caliphates have expanded their spheres of operation across international borders. Governments have become more fearful of Islamic extremism and responded by either boosting nationalism as a counterforce or tightening regulations and increasing surveillance over all religious expression. Muslims throughout the world are becoming more Islamic out of fear that extremists may take over their areas and that Islamic sleeper cells might awake and start ravaging the countryside. Most states are lawless, with minorities suffering at the hands of violent groups. This is a religious system at the heart of global persecution and unease. This is a religious belief oriented around global domination. This is a religious belief that insists on dominating all non-Muslim and people and killing those who resist. It's in their tenets. It's what they live by. That they don't do it doesn't mean it isn't there. This religious belief allows for a holy war against all infidels. That's you, if you're not Muslim. These religious principles are at the heart of what it is to be a Muslim. Unless you are a nominal Muslim, in which case you'll get persecuted later.